Hi, I would like you to support the bill about violence against women. I would like you to support that bill.
I think we can do that. Absolutely, absolutely. I was hoping that would become part of the budget deal at the end of the day. There were some differences. Democrats are trying to upgrade the bill to reflect the 21st century and different members of our community that unfortunately violence is visited upon. But I think that'll be coming to the floor very, very soon. Again, it was this close to getting through on the budget side, but we will definitely be supporting it.
Nelson, Orange City resident for quite a few number of years. I've been watching in the mainstream media and the YouTube sphere that there's quite a wave of progressive attitude, mainly with AOC and others. I was wondering how your response and how your any of your ideas are similar. Sure. In your thoughts.
Sure. No, that's a good question too. A lot of good questions. You know, seems to be a very progressive wave with lots of different agenda items out there. I think the implication is given the fact we're a moderate Democrat, represent Clackamas and Marion Holden, and Sonoma guys. How do you deal with that? And what's the sense? I will expand. What's the sense in Washington D.C.? Well, I'll tell you this: the media is trying to pit Democrats against one another. I get often asked back in Washington, D.C., oh, what do you think of AOC? And what do you think of this agenda item or that agenda item? And the inference is, since I'm a blue dog and a problem solver, to your guys' points a moment ago, that I'm going to beat the heck out of these people for their beliefs and maybe the way they're encouraging our party to move. And I don't bite. I don't bite. This is a big country, as I said. And I'd like to think Democrats are a big, national, diverse party. And our strength is in our diversity. The strength of this country is in its diversity. And if we start attacking one another because we have a slightly different spin on, frankly, the same issue, that's wrong. That's wrong. And that will take us out of the majority. The Republicans, God bless them, they had their Freedom Caucus. That group destroyed the Republican Party. That group destroyed their ability to govern, and I actually, some of my Republican colleagues I see walking around Congress right now that they're in the minority, they're happier. They're happier. They don't have to have the stress of trying to govern with one group that was always no. Always no. And so I tell folks, you know, Congresswoman Cortez, great member, she's excited, a lot of passion. I remember when I was young, you know, I was perhaps a little more passionate too, and we need that. And frankly, I think she represents the city of New York pretty darn well. You know, she got elected. She got elected. I think that's great. And the value of having, in my opinion anyway, the value within the Democratic Party, at least at this point in time, is that we have a diverse group of folks, and hopefully we're listening to one another, and we pull each other a little closer to something thoughtful as we move forward. And so I spin that back to them. I have nothing against the farther progressive wing. I think I consider myself a progressive, women's issues, healthcare, the whole environment, this stuff. But, you know, frankly, I think the strength is the fact that we're not going after each other. I haven't heard Congresswoman Cortez attack blue dogs, and we're certainly not going to do that either. We want to be in the majority for a while. We think we're a better governing party, with all due respect to our Republicans, and that the future is bright for this country if we just move things forward that we're talking about here.
Do we have our third? I think he's right here. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Congressman, I was wondering how you determine what bills you co-sponsor. Just for an example, let's say a bill has 150 co-sponsors. How do you determine that you're going to add your name to that? For example, H.R. 8 in January, I noticed you co-sponsored that along with 200 other Congress people. That's on that's on background checks. Background.
Yay.
Anyway, I'm wondering why last year there was a bill to strengthen Social Security, and 171 congressmen co-sponsored that, and I noticed you weren't one of them. And the Green New Deal, I noticed you're not one of the hundreds that are sponsoring that. So I'm wondering what your determination is, how you can co-sponsor things.
Another fantastic question. How does a member of Congress decide whether to co-sponsor a bill? You always have the opportunity, as you know, to vote for the bill at the end of the day. And it's a complicated process. There's no one set, I guess, protocol that I use. What I try and do is look at the bill itself and see how straightforward it is, how many other sponsors, some of the different members that I know who are out there, or who is actually co-sponsoring this bill. Some I will do because I've co-sponsored them obviously in previous Congresses, so that seems to me pretty much a no-brainer as long as there's not substantial change to the language. I am cautious in some that I think could be changed dramatically before the final vote. I agonize, to be honest with you, a little bit over the universal background checks. I'm a big proponent. We talked about it for years. I was a little worried that it could get amended into something that would infringe on our ability to enjoy the freedoms that the Second Amendment gives us. I talked to the bill's sponsor, I talked to leadership, talked to some of the members of my party, and got a sense that we're going to have a fairly straightforward vote on this. You can't control, good news in Congress is you get the right to amend the bill. So I'm taking a chance that it could become something different. And even that bill's sponsor, Mike Thompson, a friend of mine from California, said that, hey Kurt, I get that, and I have voted against my own bills if they become unrecognizable to me at the end of the day. But so far that bill looks like it's going through intact. I've chatted while I've been here in Oregon with folks back in DC and be a proud sponsor of that bill, frankly. So that's kind of the process you go with. And I try and, when I come up with a bill, my goal is always to get a Republican to sign on to it. And the reason for that is I'm not good at just making statements of principle. My goal, as I said before, is to govern. And if I can't get a Republican to buy into one of my ideas, it's probably not going anywhere. And I know a lot of, actually, believe it or not, moderate Republicans. A lot of them got defeated in the last election, but still a bunch there. And if I can't get one Republican sponsored, then my bill probably ain't going anywhere. I don't want to waste your time or mine. Hi there.
Hi, my name's Evan Scott. I'm from Oregon State. I'm a high schooler at Oregon State. My question is, what is your position on antitrust and data privacy laws, and what do you think should be done concerning big tech companies such as Google, Facebook, and Amazon?
Another fantastic question. We had Zuckerberg in front of our committee last Congress, and he took a bit of a beating, frankly, for the way, and we've seen since then, how Facebook is mining our own personal data on a pretty regular basis. And we'd be naive to not assume that Google and all the rest of these companies are doing exactly the same thing. That's one of the reasons I put to get on to this telecommunications committee. I hope that now we'll have an opportunity, and both Republicans and Democrats at the hearing we had the other day on net neutrality spoke up about having the opportunity to do legislation to hopefully guarantee, there's freedom to access all the services, no blocking, none of that stuff, but at the same time protect your data, your privacy going forward. It's very difficult, as you've seen in this day and age. Some of the companies aren't even aware that other companies are mining their data. You saw that recently with Apple and folks. So I think this is a huge issue. As the internet becomes more pervasive in our lives and we put more of our personal information out there, from buying things to healthcare, online stuff, it's going to be absolutely critical that we protect our privacy and our information going forward. So I hope to play heavily in that sphere of space. In the previous Congress, we had a piece of legislation I hope comes back again. Democratic buddy of mine from Vermont was pushing it, a great piece of legislation that actually had everybody, not just our banking and our energy sectors that are obsessed obviously with security, but even retailers, even little veterinary clinics like mine, would own some responsibility when you come in, you drop your Visa card or give your information out. We'd all have some ability and some responsibility to protect that data going forward. So hopefully that'll happen.
Hi there, my name is Evan David. I'm from Oregon City. My question is, what would Trump have to do that would cause you to support his impeachment? What would be just...
Well, I think Mr. Mueller's getting very close to giving us that answer.
Yeah, right.
It is pretty amazing to me that, a president of the United States has this many corrupt and convicted felons around him. If this had happened to a Democrat, it would be a whole different story on Fox News out there. And I am just astonished at the fact that, I'll just be honest with you guys, I'm astonished at the fact that American people are cutting the President of the United States so much slack for what his associates and his campaigns and his administration have done that they've been taken to court for. And that to me is telling in itself, but I am going to make sure that at the end, I'm going to go with what Mr. Mueller says. We can't just be upset because we disagree with a particular president's policies. I remember the calls for impeaching Obama, by my Republican colleagues because they disagreed with DACA or some of his other clean energy programs. And just because the president does this, and if Congress allows, like I said at the outset, we allow the executive to legislate, and we don't push back, we own some of that. But if it's crimes, high crimes and misdemeanors, and Mr. Mueller finds out that that is indeed the case, there is either outright collusion or obstruction of justice, then I'll be calling for the president's impeachment.
My question is, how do we respond to the extreme right wing that wants to take away health care and close down Planned Parenthood? Their goal is just the result of really bad extreme ideas and trying to get between a woman and her doctor.
Well, change in control in the House of Representatives, I think, will help to some degree, with all due respect to my colleagues across the aisle. There's been a big change, certainly with the change in the Supreme Court. I think everybody ought to be paying very, very close attention to what's going on. Stuff that we thought was long settled with women's ability to get the health care they need, and frankly, the rights in the workplace, all this stuff is now, frankly, unsettled. And it's call to arms for young women, I hope, in this country that took all the hard work Judy and others in my generation did for granted, that you got to step up and be engaged all the time. So I feel we're in probably pretty good shape. I'm very concerned about some of the rules recently coming out of HHS with regard to Planned Parenthood. I understand people have strong, passionate religious beliefs, faith-based beliefs on abortion. That's fine. This is a big country. I get that. We've got an amendment that we've lived under for 20 years plus, the Hyde Amendment that restricts the ability for federal funds to be used for those things. And we may not agree with that, some of us, but it's the law of the land, and it's a compromise. It allows the states or localities to do what they think they need to do to represent their people and the women in their areas. This particular administration, unfortunately, is undermining all that, and that's something that we're going to be pushing back and fighting hard throughout this next Congress, be assured.